Greetings to all and welcome to the Seattle Law of One podcast. Today's episode is about the sinkhole of indifference. Sinkhole of indifference is a term that the entities known as Ra and Quo have both used many times to refer to the tendency of the vast majority of third density souls incarnated on Earth to not polarize enough on the path of service to others or service to self enough to graduate to fourth density, the next level of spiritual evolution in the universe as we know it, meaning that their next incarnation will be on a different third density planet instead of Earth in fourth density. Why is it so hard for third density souls on Earth to graduate to fourth density, both as individuals and as a collective? And how do we get out of this sinkhole? Let's find out. My name is Jonathan Tong. I'm facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found in the list of study groups at the L&L Research website shown on your screen. We do also have a Facebook group, and we do meet on Zoom twice a week, Tuesdays from 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific time and Saturdays 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. You don't have to live in Seattle or anywhere near Seattle to join our Facebook group or our Zoom sessions. Anyone who's interested and available is welcome to join. Just contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com if you would like to get on our mailing list. We send out emails once a week with the Zoom passwords and the information on what we are talking about that week. We do also have a YouTube channel where we keep recordings of previous podcast episodes, as well as recordings of Q&A sessions with Jim McCarty, Austin Bridges, Gary Bean, and Trisha Bean from the L&L Research Channeling team. Just go to our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button if you would like to get notifications when we upload new videos. And contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com if you'd like to sit in on any of our Q&A sessions. As mentioned, today's topic is Sinkhole of Indifference. Let's go ahead and meet our panelists. Panelists, let our viewers know who you are and where you're calling from, starting with Chloe.
Hi, everyone. My name's Chloe. I'm calling in from Colorado Springs, Colorado. And I'm just so grateful to be here and offer my service in the form of my thoughts and opinions.
Nice. We're so grateful to have you back on. Always a pleasure. And Tim?
Hi, I'm Tim. I'm living in the Seattle area, and I'm really excited about this topic. It's one of the ones I've been most fascinated with, the Law of One, and yeah, I'm looking forward to an exciting discussion.
Nice. We're super excited to have you here and hope to see you again. Did want to note for our viewers, as usual, that none of us here are experts or authorities on the Law of One. We're just normal people like you, talking about things of a spiritual nature that seem important to us. Anything that any of us say could be wrong, and you're welcome to disagree with anything that any of us say. If you are familiar already with the Law of One and the entity known as Quo, you might want to skip ahead to the chapter on graduation or harvest. Otherwise, for those who are new to the Law of One, you can think of the Law of One as a set of spiritual teachings based on the understanding that all is one and that one thing is love. All of the reading passages we're looking at today have come to us through a process known as channeling. You can think of channeling as a form of telepathic communication between humans and entities such as angelic beings, extraterrestrial beings, inner planes beings, spirits of deceased higher self, etc. A channel basically serves as a mouthpiece for other entities to speak through. And in this case, those entities would appear to be of extraterrestrial origin. There are two forms of channeling that have been developed by our friends at L&L Research. Trance channeling is when the channel is in a trance state, meaning they are unconscious, or as if asleep, meaning they are not aware of what is being said. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Ra back in the early 1980s. Conscious channeling is when the channel is in a conscious but deep meditative state, meaning they're only somewhat aware of what words are coming out of their mouth as they are speaking. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Quo back in the mid-1980s up to present day. Who is Quo? You can think of Quo as a group entity made up of three social memory complexes: Latui at 6th density, Ra at 6th density, Latui at 5th density, and Hatan at 4th density. You can think of a social memory complex as a planetary consciousness. It would be as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one group mind, one single consciousness. You can think of densities or dimensions as different levels of consciousness or different levels of reality, since those two things seem to be very closely intertwined. Imagine, if you will, that the elements of earth, fire, water, and air have some form of consciousness, as many indigenous peoples have been saying they do for centuries now. We would call that first density. You can think of second density as the level of consciousness of plants and animals. Clearly a quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of what we would regard as inanimate matter. You can think of third density as the level of consciousness of humans and cetaceans like whales and dolphins. Again, a significant quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of plants and other animals. You can think of fourth density as the level of consciousness of a social memory complex. Again, as if the entire human population was merged into one single group mind. Clearly a quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of an individual person. You can think of fifth density as whatever would be a comparable quantum leap above and beyond fourth density. You can think of sixth density as whatever would be a comparable quantum leap above and beyond fifth density. It is more complicated than that, but for now, suffice to say that the entity known as Quo appears to be made up of three planetary consciousnesses: Ra at sixth density, Latui at fifth density, and Hatan at fourth density. First contact with Quo was made by the L&L Research Channeling Team in 1986, almost 2 years after the end of the Ra contact in 1984, and they have been channeled every month since then, up to the present day, by the L&L Research Channeling Team. You can find transcripts of those sessions at the L&L Research Conscious Channeling Library shown on your screen. Having said that, let's take a look at a passage on the process known as graduation harvest. For those who didn't know, graduation or harvest refers to the process of making a quantum leap from one density to the next. It happens at every density, but here on Earth, we are at the stage between third density and fourth density. So it would appear that in order to make that quantum leap from third density to fourth density, you have to make a choice. Third density is known as the density of choice because you have to choose between the path known as service to others or service to self. To graduate to fourth density on the service to others path, you have to attain a vibration level of at least 51% service to others, 49% service to self, meaning you are thinking of the well-being and needs of others at least a little bit more than your own well-being, needs, wants, or desires. To graduate to fourth density on the service to self path, you have to attain a vibration level of at least 95% service to self, 5% service to others, meaning you are thinking of your own well-being and needs and how to gain more power by controlling others at least 95% of your waking hours, and you're not thinking about anyone else for more than 5% of your waking hours, to put it in simplified terms. So why are those graduation percentages so different? Let's take a look at a passage and find out. On August 24th, 2005, Quo said, "It is not often understood among your peoples that it is extremely difficult to achieve a service to others rating of 51% or greater. Indeed, in our opinion, it is as difficult to achieve that rating as it is to achieve the obviously difficult rating of 5% service to others, which is the standard for graduation from third density for those who are seeking along the path of service to self. In the case of service to self polarity, it is overtly clear as to why it would be difficult to achieve such a rating. The purity of thought necessary to achieve the level of self-discipline and control inherent in seeking to control others 95% of the time is patent. There is no one who would argue that it is an extremely difficult and challenging feat to achieve such a polarity. It is far more difficult to see into service to others to understand why it would not be equivalent to obtain a service to others polarity of 95% service to others as a balance to 95% service to self in the opposite polarity. However, the orientation of third density is geared towards a world that is not neutral, but that is outwardly biased towards service to self. The default position, shall we say, of one within your society or culture and trained by the authority of figures of parents and teachers of childhood is quite mixed and is perhaps at a balance point or a resting point if one pictures a swing of a pendulum at approximately 25% service to others and 75% service to self. This may seem to be quite cruel, and yet it is the natural result of the interactions of those who are dealing with consensus reality issues, such as survival, making a living, and defending the family against what it perceives to be situations and elements which may tear it apart. Added to this is the situation which is unusual upon your planet in terms of planetary entities as a whole throughout the infinite creation of the Father, where entities have come to this third density experience upon planet Earth, having already made service to self choices repeatedly within other planetary experiences, so that unconscious and yet very well established habit acts as a passive force which pulls unconsciously at an entity's ethics or conscious, saying, please be sure that you have taken care of the self, the family, and the structures you wish to defend. This tendency pulls the natural default position or the resting position of the pendulum of service to self versus service to others down to about 20%. Really a lot to unpack there, and I'm going to go straight to the panel for this one. Chloe, did you have any thoughts, reflections on anything from this passage?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that it mentions, making sure the self is okay and the family, and kind of related to this more dated idea. Well, not well, this idea of like protecting the clan and protecting, your blood, and making sure like you persist through them, and also like you survive as well. And it's in a lot of cultures, and it's not inherently bad to take care of the self and take care of your family, but I can see how in this society where you're basically expected, get a job, make enough money, buy a house, support a family. So it's continued into modern day, these same expectations, but kind of
Sure.
less about community and more about the self, even now.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I think it's fair to say that we seem to be living in a slave economy, really designed to keep people in constant state of work, having to work 2 or 3 jobs just to pay the bills, just to get health care. And yeah, that certainly makes it harder for people to think about anything other than just getting by these days. That part at the end reminds me also of what Quo has said about our great ape ancestors. They have said that it is part of the DNA that we've inherited from our great ape ancestors, that we're often driven by these tribal instincts of looking out for the self and the family and the clan and hoarding resources in times of scarcity. So not surprising, it would be hard to overcome those instincts. Do you have any thoughts on anything here, Tim?
Um, yeah, I was surprised that they describe the resting rate as like 75-25, and then if you spend time on your family and protecting, your household, it drops you down to like 20%. It seems like, service to your partner, your children, maybe your neighbors, because sometimes that does, extend beyond your family and is your tribe, you know. I would consider some of that like as service to others, but you benefit from it to where, I guess, ultimately, if you get to the root of it, it is kind of service to self. You're not giving that love to the world. You're keeping it close. Um, I guess maybe that's the reason they came up with those numbers.
I think so too. It seems that fourth density is often referred to as the density of love or love and understanding, because it's very much about unconditional love, as exemplified by the entity known as Jesus, who like literally gave his life in service to others. So it seems to be that going from third to fourth density is about transcending those great ape instincts of just looking after your family and caring about others who are not part of your family or not your tribe. seems to be a big part of it, I think. Any other thoughts, Chloe?
Not at this time.
Didn't you have any other thoughts on this passage before we look at another one?
Which
Uh,
specific passage?
Go ahead, Tim.
um, no, uh, I don't really have anything else to add at this point. This was one of those ones that I read a couple of times when you sent it, and then hearing you read it again out loud, like really helped process it. This is kind of like a dense one.
It is for sure. And maybe for viewers who are visual learners and kind of help to have a graphic, you could look at this STS STO scale as a way of illustrating what Quo was saying. If you look at STS on the left side and service to others on the right side, you can see that the graduation requirement on the service to others path is 49% service to self and at least 51% service to others, whereas the graduation requirement for service to self is 95% service to self, 5% service to others. And that whole area in between is what they're referring to as the sinkhole of indifference, for people who either are not aware that there's a choice to be made, or having made the choice can never quite polarize far enough to go to reach that 51% level on the service to others. Mainly because, as they said, default setting in our culture is 75% service to self, 25% service to others. You just kind of think about our own needs and wants and desires. Yeah, probably about 3/4 of the time. Sounds about right.
Mhm. I love the
Oh,
little diagram you made.
yeah, yeah. For me, it helps to have a visual, and
I think
as
it's really
mentioned,
helpful. Sometimes I talk about it and people are like, what percentages graduation? And I'm like, this is a helpful diagram. It's good.
yeah. So viewers, feel free to share this YouTube link with somebody if they are interested in this. They do often talk about moving the needle because, as we mentioned, we said that graduation or harvest actually happens both on the individual level, about an individual person achieving that vibration level, but it's also about humanity as a collective graduating from third density to fourth density. And they've said it doesn't mean that you have to have 100% of the population of Earth choose service to others. There just has to be what they call a critical mass. And they said that critical mass could be a relatively small percentage, but it's a percentage, a critical mass of people who have consciously chosen the service to others path and want to follow that path. That would be what they refer to as us moving the needle as a whole to graduate. For others who are also not real familiar with service to others, service to self, you could think of service to others being about seeing the creator in yourself and all others. Whereas on the service to self path, it's really only about seeing the creator in yourself and not in anyone else. You could say the service to others path is about accepting, treating others as equals, being inclusive and egalitarian, whereas service to self is really about controlling others to gain more power over them. It is inherently elitist and exclusive, hierarchical, authoritarian. You could say that service to others path is about honoring, not violating free will of others, whereas the service to self path is about rejecting free will choices of others and imposing your will on them and enslaving them, or getting them to enslave themselves by their own free will if you're good at it. You can also think of service to others as what is called the positive path, being based on truth, love, radiating, giving, whereas service to self is referred to as the negative path, based on fear, lies, and deceptions, absorbing and taking. And it's really easy to fall into the trap of seeing service to others as good, service to self as evil, seeing service to others as being the better path than service to self. But it cannot be emphasized enough that Ross said in session 7, question 15, the law of one blinks neither at the light or the darkness, but is available for service to others and service to self, meaning that in the eyes of the creator, both of those paths are equally valid ways to be one with creator. And that's something clearly we're struggling with these days as a society. Tim, did you have any thoughts on anything here? Anything you wanted to add? Or Chloe? Anything I missed here?
Nothing to add, just that, you know, what you're describing could be applied to so much we're seeing, across the globe right now as people are really, struggling
For sure.
with the people that are like dead set on service to self and ruling the planet that way.
For sure. Yeah, and that's the challenge for service to others, entities, to see them as other selves, as other creators on a path as valid as the path we have chosen. That is, I think that is the challenge for service to others, entities. Why don't we go ahead? Let's take a look at a passage on being okay with the status quo, with the way things are. On January 4th, 2020, Quo said, "The indifference that is expressed by those entities which do not find it possible within their own being to generate the desire to seek beyond the nature of their daily round of activities, beyond the mundane world, beyond that which they have always known. They seek only to reproduce the day before, the getting of the job, the making of the money, supporting of the family, gaining stature in the community, and so forth. These are possible tools for enhancing the journey, which are not being utilized by entities which have no concept of that which is more than the experience they have previously had. They are unable to generate the faith or the will in any concept beyond the mundane world. They have this general feeling that this world is all that there is. There is beyond to this, that there is a beyond to this world is totally unknown to them and unimportant to them as long as they are able to provide themselves and their family with the basic ingredients for survival. The sinkhole of indifference then begins to draw all into it that are of this nature, that have no concept of moving beyond that which is in their lives at present and that which has been as it is now. So this is a kind of momentum in a reverse order that does not allow movement forward in consciousness. The heart is hardened, the mind is closed, the movement is minuscule. Thus, there is no progress in the spiritual sense. This passage, I think, touches on a number of things that we mentioned already, but kind of looking at it from interesting, different angle. Chloe, did you have any thoughts on anything here?
Yeah, I think it's important to emphasize that the portion of the passage that just refers to, when people have this belief that there's nothing more, that all you see is all there is, that of course, you just want to make sure you get to the next day, you get to the next year, that you can pull yourself and your family to that point, and that's it. And, as a former atheist, that definitely used to be more of my mindset. Like, what can I do to set myself up for a lifetime of survival? Like, not really seeing beyond that at all, versus when I had my awakening, it was much easier for me to have faith that I would never just like be in that situation where I'm suddenly on the streets, or like, you know, in the cosmic sense, I'm more willing to trust that I will be okay, versus before, like, I definitely didn't have that sense at all.
Yeah, it makes a big difference, I'm sure. And I imagine that's the reason why a lot of people who have chosen some religious path or spiritual path have chosen it to give some sort of hope in what happens after. Do you have any thoughts, reflections on anything here, Tim?
Yeah, uh, the talking about how so many people just don't see beyond the mundane world. I mean, you see it everywhere. There's so many people that are just caught up with their daily lives, what's on their phone, what's on their TV. Even some of these people that are like practicing Christians and stuff like that, they might like talk about heaven and some of the bigger concepts in Christianity, but I don't think they think about it or really like they they find comfort in the fairy tale that there is an afterlife without ever really accepting that there is an afterlife. Like they're just not putting any thought into that. Like I just saw a thing recently that was describing how right now the Earth it rotates on its axis at about 1,000 miles per hour. it rotates around the sun at 67,000 miles per hour, while the sun is moving around the spiral arm of our galaxy at 500,000 miles per hour. And the Milky Way itself, that arm, the whole Milky Way, it's moving at over 1 million miles through the actual universe. And you just sit in your chair, your car, on the bus or whatever, and you don't even think about the wonder that is just existing,
Yeah.
you know. And it's, I mean, all the things that could fascinate you in the world are out there, and people aren't fascinated. They're bored.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say the service to self entities who control our media, social media, movies, TV, don't want people thinking about that kind of stuff. It's really unusual to see a movie or a TV show that really explores spirituality, on a serious level, takes it seriously. Maybe on the Gaia channel or some YouTube channels or something, but otherwise on mainstream media, I guess you could say. Yeah, really, it is really all about just getting a job, working, coming home exhausted, sleeping, getting up the next day and doing it, and eating, drinking, and just being a fat, happy slave, I think is kind of what it's all about.
Yeah.
Which is why it's so difficult for people to get out of that sinkhole. They just don't see anything other than the mundane world. Do you guys have any other thoughts, reflections to share on this? Chloe, Tim?
There's comfort in the mundane world. They don't have that spark to get out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you could think of the sinkhole of indifference as a comfort zone. People really don't feel a
Yeah.
need or compelled to go outside of their comfort zone, which pretty much keeps them in this repeating loop of third density. Because if they're not able to polarize enough to graduate, they just have to repeat third density again as many times as it takes. Which would be a great segue into our next section. Let's take a look at a couple passages on repeating patterns. On February 24th, 2024, not that long ago, Quo said, "Most within your world are comfortably, albeit often miserably, ensconced or magnetically stuck to this sinkhole, and this condition permeates nearly every aspect of your society. It is not seen as such, it is seen as normal. The great glittering show of your people's media and their many diversions and activities, while not wrong in and of themselves, as a system, this helps to reinforce the sleeping state, shall we say, lulling those of your world into repetitive patterns that are not broken because conscious awareness is not brought to these repeating patterns. Instead, they are blindly enacted again and again with various permutations. One significant, and for your heart's devastation, outgrowth of this, the continual cycles of bellicosity, which have ravaged your world in various ways, historically and into the present. The bellicosity is also a function of the repeating patterns of your history and the repeating nature of the sinkhole. I never saw the word bellicosity until I read the Law of Fun, but boy, they use that word a lot. It really comes up in a lot of channeling sessions because, as they say, it seems the history of humanity is just a history of repeating karmic cycles of fear and war and bellicosity, rising and falling of one empire after the other. And again, it just creates these patterns which are just really hard to break out of. Any thoughts on anything here, Tim?
Yeah, if you think about, the challenges to humanity, shelter, feeding, reproduction, that we've faced, over the long cycle of, the rise and fall of civilizations. I think like humanity right now, as a global community with communication and the science and technology, and I mean, we have, I think, the tools at our disposal to end some of those cycles and actually move as a race forward. I mean, I think we're on that precipice now. It's just getting people there. There's that lizard brain that tells them that there's not enough to go around and that you need to snatch up and hoard, resources. And I think there's enough for everybody to live comfortably if we just do it right.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a challenge, though. Absolutely. And again, it would seem the service to self entities that are at the top of the hierarchical system we've got of our political, economic, social structures, they really, that's the goal, to keep people in that constant state. So they're constantly having to fight each other over scraps of food that they drop from their tables. Again, yeah, it's part of the challenge. It's why it's not surprising that the default setting for people would be 75% service to others, 75% service to self, 25% service to others. It's really just a matter of survival, I think, for a lot of people. Oh, anything to add, Chloe? Any thoughts here?
Yeah, just to add to what Tim was saying, I think it's truly just the glittering show of our media. It's brainwash, and to brainwash us into thinking there's not enough, where I agree that there is enough. The earth is bountiful, the universe is infinitely abundant, and we are all here to take care of each other should that choice be made. And there's so much support and love and light on this planet, but what gets presented to us is a grotesque picture of bellicose actions across the globe, to sum it up. Whether that's like politically or physically or spiritually or whatever form of non oneness, non togetherness that gets represented.
For sure. Yeah. I think of all the movies and TV shows that I see, and it seems to me, maybe I'm just like paying attention to it more, but yeah, it seems to be so much about violence, so much about being afraid. And then the commercials are all about eating more fat food to get you fat, or drinking more booze to
Buy
get you
this
drunk.
product, it'll make you beautiful, or buy this product, it'll make you strong or desirable or smart.
Or buy these prescription medications. Seeing a whole lot more ads for prescription medications now than I remember seeing in the past. Yeah, definitely reinforces that stuff. Any other thoughts, comments on this passage before we look at another one on repeating patterns? Let's take a look at another one. This is from December 14th, 2022. And Quo said, with this in mind, we do feel it is also helpful to consider what we have called the sinkhole of indifference, and how you, as such seekers, may relate to those who have not yet made such a choice, and who seem to be asleep in their daily round of activities without giving much consideration for either the metaphysical details of your experience or the importance of choosing what we have called one polarity or another. In essence, these individuals, those individuals who have not yet fully opened the heart or chosen to close it consciously, and instead drift between one decision or another of serving others or serving the self, you may already perceive that such individuals can be mostly described as being caught in certain patterns, and these patterns are reinforced by the ever-increasing demands of your society, and even such tools designed to encourage this waffling and wavering, seeking comfort and giving little consideration for how one relates to their other selves. How one may interact with these individuals and share oneself authentically and without hesitation is indeed a grand question for the seeker of truth, as you have described it. Super interesting passage. Any thoughts, reflections on this one, Chloe?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about how it feels to represent yourself or express yourself to someone who doesn't have the same type of awareness or thinking process about, like, oh, something happened, I had this catalyst today and it really upset me, and like, how can I grow for that? Why did it happen? How can I look into this deeper? Most people are like, oh, that thing that happened to me, it sucks, my life sucks now, and it's all horrible. And they really hyper focus, like they focus on the bad part. And okay, well, it's like when I try to represent myself or express myself in what I consider to be authentic, I really get stuck in the little details, like spiritually, these metaphysical, esoteric concepts I really want to talk about at length. But then you kind of see people, their eyes glaze over a little bit. It's a way above their head, and they're trying to be polite and let you finish talking. And so I think maybe there's a lot more to be gained just from expressing that love and that light energetically through whatever mundane conversation or, light conversation that occurs, just being present and having an open heart. Like, I think maybe that's a better way to go about it from experience. I don't know
Yeah.
what you guys.
No, I would definitely agree with that. And I think what I like about this passage is it's really kind of looking at the vast majority of entities we might run across in our daily rounds who are basically asleep and are not aware that there's a choice to be made in the first place. And it's really kind of looking at the question of, well, what should we do? Should we try to wake them up? And if we do, what's the best way to do it? Because, yeah, they have said many times it's really not about, standing on a rooftop and shouting out the law of one to anyone who can hear it. People have to wake up on their own timelines, and trying to give this information to someone who hasn't asked for it, I think they would be considered, that would be depolarizing on the service to others path. So I like the emphasis. I like what you're talking about sharing yourself authentically. I think if you're just in conversation and just being your most true, authentic self, then maybe the spirituality will come up as a topic for discussion. And if not, then not the right time, I guess. What do you think, Tim? Any thoughts on any of that?
Oh, like what Clay was saying makes me think about how wanderers they come here to raise the vibration and the light level of the planet just by being here. And you may not have those direct conversations one on one with people where you like explain, some of these complex metaphysical thoughts and stuff that we discuss here. It's not ready for everybody, but just the fact that like you're living your life in a way that I don't know catches on to other people. They see you being happy and wonder what's he figured out. And I don't know. It's just the passage made me see another reason why the wanderers are here. Um,
For sure.
and at the beginning, it was talking about choice and people not making a choice and stuff. It couldn't help me but make me think of the Canadian prog rock band Rush and their great song "Free Will." Um,
Oh, I don't
there's
think I
those
know
of
that
you
one. I know a
that
fair number of Rush songs, but don't know that
if you
one.
heard it, you would know it. Um, those there are those of us that think that life has nothing left to chance, a host of holy horrors to direct our aimless dance. A planet of playthings, we dance on the strings of powers we cannot perceive. The stars aren't aligned, or the gods are malign. Blame is better to give than receive. You can choose a ready guide in some celestial voice. If you choose not to decide, you have still made a choice.
You had that one all queued up and ready to go, didn't you?
Wait,
That's pretty good.
couldn't wait.
I love it.
You were quoting the lyric, right? That wasn't you.
Absolutely, that was all. That's Rush. Yeah, that's the beginning of the song. But yeah, like the chorus that they repeat is, if you've still made a choice if you decide not to choose.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, and this discussion reminds me, there's been many times when Quo has said, if you really want to save the world, if you really want to change the world, think about your own consciousness. Don't be thinking about trying to change other people's consciousness. That's not really why you're here. The best way you can lighten planetary vibrations is be more of your true, authentic self. Show that love of the one infinite creator through yourself, and then other people can pick up on that as needed. Any other thoughts, reflections on this passage before we take a look at another one?
Yeah, I think I'll just add from what you just said, just we can't change anyone even if we tried, even if we really wanted to. People that choice has to come in from within yourself. And that's for any change, weight loss, addiction, wanting to be more productive. Those things can't be given to you. You have to decide within yourself that you want change, that you want a different life.
I think that's a super important point, that if you really want to get out of the sinkhole, you have to really want to. You have to want to change. And probably most people don't necessarily want to change other
Yeah, we're
than
comfortable.
losing weight and a few pounds or something like that. Yeah. 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 All super good points indeed. Shall we take a look at another passage? Let's take a look at a passage on carelessness. On April 16th, 2006, Quo said, "There is another group of entities who shall be upon your planet for some time into the future if they so choose. These are entities who are not able to graduate into fourth density or higher densities if they are wanderers, but who yet feel that karmic pull and wish to make restitution. Those include many who are alive at this time, and you will find that many entities will be attempting more and more to refocus upon the needs of the planet and its resources. They will be wishing to clean its water, its air, its soil. These entities are hoping not to graduate, but rather to go to a kind of summer school, if you will, where they can free themselves of the habit of carelessness. For it is a careless thing to misuse the environment. It is also a careless thing to misuse people, relationships, societal entities, and groups. So this is a time of great excitement and hope upon your planet. Many are attempting to graduate, and many who do not feel that they can graduate at this time are attempting to make restitution so that they are free of the karma of having destroyed or hurt the planetary beings upon which they lived in the past." Another reminder that, as Quo has said many times, the majority of souls incarnated on Earth at this time came from other planets like Mars, Maldek, Sirius, Deneb, or Atlantis on this planet, places that were either blown to bits or rendered uninhabitable by endless karmic cycles of war and bellicosity and fear. So again, it's another thing that makes it hard for many to get out of that sinkhole because they're kind of caught in that loop. Any thoughts on this passage, Tim?
Um, God, I care so much about the planet. This one really hits home. I
Yeah.
mean, like the disregard that some people have. Like, okay, I was saying how I think there's enough for everybody, and the planet has the resources. The planet, in the same way, is also very fragile, and we can't just be so reckless with it. You know, I grew up here in the Pacific Northwest, and I could tell you for a fact, like our summers are hotter and longer, and because of forest fires, they're smokier than they've ever been. Like I remember once, maybe twice as a child, where we had forest fires bad enough to where the smoke got to where it was a problem, and now it's almost like every summer it happens. Like it's heartbreaking the carelessness that people have with our planet.
Yeah.
Um, I I'm happy that anyone does anything to help the planet, whether it's to clean their karma or just to clean the planet. Like I don't know, that warms my heart.
Yeah, yeah, and this hits home for me too, and I try really hard not to be judgmental about it. But yeah, when I read this passage, it reminds me of people who, in my opinion, uh, vote for people into positions of power, but then are just careless about paying attention to what those entities actually do once they're in office. So to me, it seems careless to say that you care about the environment, but put people in positions of power whose rallying cry is drill, baby, drill. It's careless to say that you care about diversity and equity and inclusion and then vote people into power who, from day one, do everything they can to eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the list goes on and on. And I mean, people obviously have opposing viewpoints to this. And yeah, it's not my job to try to change their viewpoints. And it's definitely not helpful for me to be judgmental of folks who have different, let's say, political opinions from mine. But that is certainly what I think about when I read this passage. Any thoughts, Chloe?
I will start with a positive thought, which is I feel that I have met many, many people who either self-proclaimed or I just get this sense from them that they really are just here for the planet right now, like to heal the planet, or maybe they're super driven and they're like, I'm going to be the one who figures out how to fix this specific environmental problem. Like, I've met many of these people, and it's so beautiful and inspiring the amount of unconditional love you can feel their energy towards the planet.
Yeah.
And I would say, I agree with you guys. Like, the planet needs this love and it needs this special tender care because, I live in a mountain town where Pikes Peak is right next to us. And, kids older than me, when they were younger, they say they remember Pikes Peak being covered in snow year round. And now that is only, for me as an adult, that just only covered in snow for like 30% of the year. So there are some places it's undeniable that the planet is calling out for help, to say the least.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think that is why so many young people are so passionate about protecting the environment. Quo has said that those indigo children, many of those who are being born now as children, actually graduated already to fourth density, but they chose to come back to planet Earth because they really wanted to care for the planet and they wanted to do their own version of karmic cleanup to help make up for all the harm that's been done to this planet. So, yeah, I would think that should be something that everybody can agree on, whether or not you agree on, fossil fuels contributing to climate change or not. Hopefully, we can all agree that just caring for the planet, taking care of the planet as much as we can. I mean, fossil fuels cause pollution of land, air, and water. You can ignore the whole climate change part if you want, and just know that it's a really dirty source of fuel, and that we can and should be able to do better than that. Certainly, in many ways, how we care for our planet. Anybody else have any other thoughts, reflections on this passage?
Um, I just like that Quo does refer to the Earth as a planetary being. That Mother Gaia is a real entity.
Yeah,
I enjoy that.
yeah, me too. Me too.
Absolutely.
Let's take a look at an interesting passage on another term for sinkhole, which is gravity well. They have used this a number of times in channeling sessions. Let's take a look at one time. This is from January 1st, 2006. Quo says, if entities are not yet at that point where it is necessary for them to wake up, necessary for them to get a grasp of the situation, and necessary for them then to make the choice, they are simply not ready to leave third density, and therefore they dwell in a sinkhole of indifference that is like a gravity well. They simply cannot get off the bottom of the swing of, say, the pendulum that they represent by not having chosen. Those who have not made the choice are those, say, that would be hanging straight down into the gravity well. Just as when one swings on a swing, one has to rock back and forth to get a good start. Then once one is swinging, one is able to swing very high. One has developed power. A person that is simply hanging at the bottom of this gravity well of indifference has no power. So you are basically looking at entities who are powerless. They sense that they are powerless without having knowledge of how to claim the very substantial power that they indeed do have, but do not know how to get to. I love the visual in this passage about somebody on a swing hanging in a gravity well. I created this graphic myself just to kind of help visualize that, the person on the swing, imagine that pit like has no bottom, or it would be a very, very deep pit. And from the vantage point of the swing, yeah, it seems like really difficult to get out of. But once you start swinging back and forth, you can get enough momentum that you could probably get up to the top and be able to get out. But most people just aren't aware that there's even a choice to be made, much less that they have the power, all the power they need to get out of the sinkhole. Did you have any thoughts, reflections on this passage, Chloe?
No, I feel that it very well just expresses what it needs to, that people just tend to get stuck and not knowing there's a choice. Of course, like, how are you going to make the choice if you don't know there's a choice?
Right.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, knowing there's a choice to be made is probably the first step. And yeah, again, that's part of the reason why we make these videos, so that people can be aware that there is a choice to be made and maybe can learn how to polarize more purely on that path if that is what they're trying to do.
Yes.
Tim, any thoughts on anything here?
Yeah, the way the Sinkhole of Indifference is, referred to like a gravity well. I mean, here we are on Earth and we experience gravity. It's honest, it's all around us, it's unrelenting. The same thing about that sinkhole, it's all around you, it's pulling you down, it's relentless. You don't even realize you're in it. Just like fish don't realize they're in the water. It's the environment that you're just always in. Um, so it's how do you even get past that, to start making, real changes in your life to where you start to get out of that sinkhole? Like everything, of the construct and the negative entities outside of our planet, it's all built to keep you in it. Um,
Sure seems that way.
yeah, it seems to be the biggest challenge. And as someone that I feel like is a little bit enlightened and a wanderer, or sees past the sinkhole, that resistance, that it's not a conscious resistance, it's just like gravity. Like the people around us are that sinkhole that we feel is like weighing us down. Because like I want humanity to like get to that fourth density and make that switch to where we're not fighting over resources, and we can start learning new, brighter lessons, and live a more fulfilling lives. And as long as that is there, that's our current challenge.
Agreed. Yeah, it reminds me of what Chloe said about you have to want to change in the first place. If you're hanging there on that swing at the bottom, you have to want to get out before you're willing to put the effort in to like start swinging. And like everything else, it starts with small steps, and then from small steps comes larger steps, and eventually you get that momentum going, and you can get that escape velocity, as it were, to get out of the sinkhole. Oftentimes, I think of the sinkhole of indifference as like a black hole, and it has a tendency to suck light into it. And unless you can build up enough momentum to have escape velocity to get out of the sinkhole, then yeah, it's really easy to get caught in it, easy to get stuck. Anybody have anything else wanted to share on this before we look at, I think we got just a couple more passages to look at. Anybody have anything else to share on this one?
For your graphic, I really like it. It gave me a little bit of like fear of heights, like uneasiness. I was thinking though, to greater like convey that that person's in a sinkhole, change the swing to like a lazy boy, and then give him a bag of Doritos and maybe a Mountain Dew.
There
In a
you go.
TV, yeah,
Or a
yeah,
TV.
yeah.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Or virtual reality goggles, yeah,
virtuality. There you go.
yeah.
Don't forget his tablet, guys.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's hilarious. Well, let us close this session by taking a look at a few words of encouragement. On January 1st, 2006, Quo said, "It is important to realize, my brother, that simply because a group of entities did not make graduation at this time does not mean there has been a failure. There is no concept of success or failure as such in the outworking of the pattern for a planetary density. Those who are able to be harvested are harvested. Those who are not able to be harvested are given further opportunities to work through the lessons that they were unable to learn so far. There is no reason to be concerned. It is simply a point of information that the particular planet on which you now enjoy living is soon to become unavailable for third density work. Therefore, those of third density shall need to take up their studies elsewhere. Let's take a look at one other passage. This is from November 9th, 1986. And Quo said, "Each of you falls headlong into a blazing white light, the white light of an infinite creator whose very nature is love. You are falling unbelievably quickly, and you shall fuse and become one in your perception as you already are in reality with love itself. This is your destiny. And yet speed is such a relative thing. None of you knows how quickly spiritual gravity pulls you toward that great center, that great unity. Each of you feels you cannot possibly be moving quickly enough. You need to know more, and so you draw yourself along. Yet in reality, you could not hold yourself back if you tried." I love this passage, and it comes to mind often. And whenever I think of this passage, I always think of a spiral galaxy like you see on the screen, except this would be like where the lights are all swirling in towards the center, like water swirling down a drain. And yeah, if you're on the outer edge, the outer arm of that galaxy, like it could seem that it's taking forever and it's going really slow. But soon enough, just like water going down a drain, you'll get to that center. So I like the first passage we looked at where they said, it's no failure to not graduate. You've got all the time in the universe, and each person is going to make that happen on their own timeline. And I do find encouragement in that, and it helps me not be thinking about somebody else's consciousness, rather do my own work instead. Any thoughts on anything here, Chloe? Either of these passages?
Of course. First, I just love this idea that they just refer to it as, you're going to take up your studies elsewhere. Like, there's no punishment. You're just going to continue on your journey, continue in the school, and continue the learning. And as Ra would say, the learn teaching and the teach learning. And I also really like that second passage, that quote that you added with the spiral galaxy, because just the idea of unity and the idea of we're all magnetically just getting brought back together as one, and just having, I always thought of black holes as kind of being these points where all the information and all the love and all of it just comes back to the creator at those certain points. And I've always thought of black holes to kind of just be the physical expression of reunifying with the creator. So I don't
I
know.
think that is how Quo has described it before, pretty much in those terms. So yeah, I find that beautiful and inspiring too, for sure.
Yes.
The whole idea of falling into the light, I just love that idea. You're falling into the light. There's nothing you can do to keep it from happening. It is inevitable, as Thanos said. Yes, but in a good way. Yeah. Tim, any thoughts to add?
Yeah, I mean, the point, the center of a black hole is known as a singularity, where, like particles break down and there's, the gravitational force is stronger than like the I can't say that word.
Magnetic?
Weak magnetic force. Yeah, to where everything just becomes one, and that's like kind of the state of the universe before the Big Bang. There was no anything, no separation. Uh, Infinite mass condensed into infinitely small space.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it is a beautiful thing to contemplate. And the opposite of that being the Big Bang, being, if I'm understanding channeling sessions correctly, it's the one infinite creator in one big explosion, sending out infinite number of sparks of itself out into the universe to explore, and each spark being a person like us, a soul on their own journey, looking at the limits of light and the limits of dark and what it means to experience what each of us is experiencing. It's a really beautiful thought. And again, it helps me be less judgmental towards others simply because they're on a different spiritual path than me, or they have different beliefs than I do. I definitely find that helpful to my own journey in polarization.
Well, there's
Any
this
other?
saying there. Oh,
What's
there's this
that?
saying, there goes I, but for the grace of God, when you see someone that may be more or less fortunate than you, for whatever the case may be, um, there's plenty of people that are here on this planet that are learning a lesson for the infinite creator that I'm thankful I'm not going through and learning that lesson. I know seems pretty hard. I mean, I enjoy the challenges that I have in my life and what we have here, and I'm thankful, for my place, and I'm thankful often that I'm not in a different setting.
Yeah, yeah. And one could easily say, well, if I were in their place, I probably would have done the same thing. And I
Yeah.
think if you believe in the law of one, then that is literally true because they are you in that other place. So you are, by definition, doing exactly what you would have done if you were in their place. So again, it's like, oh, stop being so judgmental about others. Yeah. Takes me a while. I am a slow learner. Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Any other thoughts on this passage? I think I got one more to look at. Shall we take a look at one more passage? This is from October 14th, 2005. And Quo said, we would note that to those who perceive at the heart level the absolute centrality of service to others as a polarized choice, it is close to inevitable that at the moment of death and the entry into graduation, your vibratory level will reflect that basic choice. Once you have awakened and begun the process of spiritual seeking, the odds are heavily in your favor that your vibratory level at that time will reflect a satisfactory level of service to others polarity for you to be able to have the opportunity to graduate. We say this in order to take away that feeling of needing to pass a test. It is the essence of the grasping of the centrality of the choice of service to others as a polarity that is the most substantial part of how your energy body will be vibrating at the time of your passing through that gateway, rather than the day-to-day details that vary according to those transient and ephemeral circumstances that come and go, rise and fall away again in the course of any lifetime. Therefore, rather than being overly concerned about any one choice, any one day, or any one action, keep moving back in your mind to the central point and to your first faithful choice of polarity. Affirm and reaffirm that choice. This is your fulcrum. This is the source of your power as a choice-making spiritual seeker. Then each day, let the day be a new one and see what you can do to make this day a day in which you have upheld that basic choice to the very best of your ability as a spiritual seeker. I really love this passage. I really love that part in the middle paragraph about wanting to take away the feeling of needing to pass a test. You talk about graduation, you talk about schools of souls, you talk about lessons, you talk about tests and pop quizzes. It sounds like fucking school, and I think enough of us have had enough negative experiences with school. The idea of graduation and having to pass a test to graduate sounds like a nightmare. It just sounds like a terrible thing. And yet, it's not as creepy as harvest. Being harvested sounds like almost like creepy, like we're harvesting human souls or something like that. That's why I generally prefer using the term graduation. And yet it really kind of gets somebody into a school mindset. And I like this idea that just once you have awakened and made a commitment in your heart to polarize on that path as much as you can, it's almost inevitable that you will. You just have to make that choice, and you have to keep it central in your thoughts as much as you can throughout the day. Any thoughts on this one, Tim?
Actually, yeah. This is one that really, really hits home. Before learning about the law of one in my spiritual process, throughout my life, I've had uh, um, vivid dreams. And one of the ones I was having over and over again was I was in my senior year of high school. I was in English class. I was surrounded by my friends and I was working on my senior project and I was a little stressed about it. And in my dream, I realized, I think to myself, I'm like, I've already graduated. I've already graduated high school. I don't need a high school diploma. I have one. There's no reason for me to be here. I don't think about why I am here. I just think that I'm released of the stress of going through the graduation process again because I know I've done it. I know I can do it. And being there, I honestly, I liked school. I had a lot of friends. I did well in class. I didn't really struggle with studies and stuff. Like, I have really fond memories of school. So the stress of it was from completing and doing a good job on my senior project. I care about doing a good job. I guess that's why I was, a decent student or whatever. So in these dreams, I get to the point where I realize I don't need to do any of this, and I just kind of get up and walk away, and it's just so freeing. um, with needing to pass a test, I just I don't like the feeling of of being judged. And in my dream, I realized that I don't have to be, and that's freeing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think all you have to do is, like Chloe said, just be the truest, most authentic self you can be, and be who you are on the deepest level. And you'll find that on the deepest level, you're the one infinite creator. And if you can radiate that and to anyone around you in your own way, then don't know what else one can do more than that. Chloe, anything to add? Any thoughts on this passage?
I'm so grateful that you decided to add this. And it was my first time reading this when you sent the passages you were planning to include. And, for the past 5 years on my journey, I have carried the weight and the pressure of like, I need to do enough. I need to find a way to do enough. And just this, I don't want to say, but maybe a sort of sense of desperation. And because I just really kind of want to stay with the earth on her journey into fourth density. And I don't know, maybe that's a selfish attachment, and attachment's the root of all suffering, but I would love to stay with the earth and see what it's like to be in fourth density here. Um, and I've always taken exams and studies really seriously, so it's like just that also like academically minded is just what can I learn and what can I implement and how can I be best prepared for, as Tim mentioned, like judgment, like what is essentially judgment day. But I just feel a huge sense of relief. It's like I can finally, it's all happening exactly as it was meant to happen. And I already knew that, but just a little more confirmation.
For sure. And that confirmation is always appreciated. Yeah, I like the part they said in the middle paragraph about it's really not about passing a test. It's not like you die and then somebody's going to ask you a bunch of questions, give you some ethical trolley problems or something, and you have to figure out what's the correct answer to give. It's really just about
Yeah,
who you are. It's your nature. It's how you're
the
vibrating.
energy.
Yeah,
It's how your energy is and how you've decided to be. And
yeah,
that's the choice.
yeah. And I think that's kind of what this passage is saying. Once you have awakened to the fact that there is a choice to be made, and you have chosen, let's say, the service to others path, then once you have made that choice and commit to it, then it's just about trying to be the best person you can be after that. Be the most loving, most open hearted person, loving unconditionally, not just the people you already like, but the people who you have the hardest time with also. Once you commit to that and try to do the best you can each day, I think what they're saying is, I think you're going to be okay. I think you're going to make it. I find that super encouraging.
That
Any other last thoughts on this passage?
Well, that makes me think of, I heard the definition of charisma once as it's when someone's charismatic, it means that they feel good about themselves and are confident, and simultaneously make the people around them feel good about themselves and confident and lifts everybody up. And that's what people find charismatic.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, I think that is true. I can think of individuals who fit that description for sure.
Tom Hanks.
And any other last thoughts on this passage before we wrap things up? Well, let's take a look at where do we go from here? What are some good takeaway lessons that we've gotten from our conversation today? I might suggest a few. For one thing, if you did not know that there was a choice to be made, today is going to be the best, most important day of the rest of your life. Choose. Choose the service to others or service to self path, and then commit as best as you can to it. And again, you have to want to change in order to change. And think about what repeating lessons you need learning. What are some recurring patterns that happen in your life that seem like you can change and do better with? And remember that it's not about your actions or what you do, it's about your vibration and who you are. Put service to others, unconditional love at your center. And remember that not graduating is not the same thing as failing. You have all the time in the universe. And just do the best you can. What more could you do than the best you can? That's all any of us can be expected to do. Any thoughts, takeaway lessons of your own you'd like to add, Chloe? Or final thoughts on this?
Yeah, I would like to put some final emphasis on just vibrating that love and acceptance and just a loving smile and a genuine attempt at friendship can change someone's whole life in some ways. Just seeing that gentle acceptance and that love from a stranger. And I think that's very good for polarizing as well, but just treating people how you want to be treated, and it'll all turn out just fine.
Well said. Yeah, it's a little surprising to me that rarely is the golden rule invoked in the Law of One. I've read hundreds of channeling sessions, and I think I've run across one or two places where they suggest in treating others as you would want to be treated. And yet, oh yeah, surprisingly few times. And it seems to be a key part of the Law of One, because if the person you perceive as another self is in fact yourself, then obviously you would want them to treat you the same way you treat other people and vice versa.
Yes.
Tim, any takeaway lessons of your own you'd like to add?
Not add, but I just want to comment on number 6. I know we were just talking about it. It made me think of, in my life in work, I've trained a lot of people, and you meet some people that pick it up quickly, some people that take longer to get there. But with enough patience, and if you understand what you're teaching well enough, you will figure out a way to get that person over that hill. I have never seen anyone fail. It might take longer. It might take a week to get it. It might take 6 months. But if you stick with it, every single person they'll get it.
That's a beautiful thought to close on. Yeah, much appreciate it. Panelists, it's been awesome. Again, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for sharing your thoughts and opinions. I always learn from panelists from these, and I appreciate it. But that means we got one more item of business to take care of, and that, of course, is the pop quiz. Pop quizzes are things we like to do on our podcast to end our time together on a fun note, and maybe look for Law of One lessons in the pop culture. I'm glad you enjoy them. I certainly enjoy writing them. Since today's episode was about the Sinkhole of Indifference, today's pop quiz is going to be about black holes. In particular, one movie that had a black hole as a very important part of its plot. I am referring to the 2014 movie directed by Christopher Nolan, starring Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway as two astronauts on a team sent through a wormhole to try to find other inhabitable planets in a post-apocalyptic world. I am, of course, referring to what movie, panelists?
Interstellar.
Interstellar, indeed.
I can't believe
Congratulations.
it's over 10 years old.
Yeah, hard to believe, isn't it? Yeah.
Wow.
You didn't know time was accelerating. Now you do.
Time is doing its thing.
Yeah. Yeah, for viewers who have not seen the movie, it's a great movie, considered one of the best science fiction movies and maybe even one of the best movies of all time. And
Yeah.
yeah, black hole is a big part of the plot to unfold here. So, panelists, I'm going to ask you three questions about this movie, see how many you can answer correctly. As always, the points don't matter. If you had fun, you won. If you learned something new about this classic piece of pop culture, you won as well. It is worth noting that black hole has come up in channeling sessions a few times in the Raw Contact. Session 29, question 18, Ra said, when all of creation in its infinity has reached a spiritual gravitational mass of sufficient nature, the entire creation infinitely coalesces, the light seeking and finding its source, and thusly ending the creation and beginning a new creation, much as you consider the black hole, as you call it, with its conditions of infinitely great mass at the 0 point from which no light may be seen as it has been absorbed. And on March 19th, 1995, Quo said, the phenomenon which you know of as the black hole is but the completion of experience and one octave of densities. That is the seed for a further octave of densities on, shall we say, the other side of the black hole, so-called. Which sounds a lot like what Chloe was describing not too long ago, and super cool.
Yeah, it really does. What a fun coincidence.
You know your stuff. You know your stuff. But let's see how well you know about the movie Interstellar. Are you ready for your first question? Your
Yes,
first
I am.
question is, who was originally supposed to direct Interstellar? Was it A, Steven Spielberg, B, Ridley Scott, C, Denis Villeneuve, or was it D, Christopher Nolan?
I'm gonna.
A.
I was thinking A before any of the names came up, but I think I'm gonna go with D because it seems like Nolan was so meant to make this film that I couldn't imagine another director doing it.
Yeah,
Ridley Scott, though, I think would have done a good job.
yeah, yeah. Ridley Scott directed Blade Runner and Alien and The Martian and both Gladiator movies. He has made classics for sure.
Did you ever
What do you
see?
think, Chloe? Tim?
Oh, did you ever see Raised by Wolves? It was a HBO series he did
Mm-mm.
2 seasons before it got canceled. Really
Oh,
high concept sci-fi. If you like some of his other work, please seek it out. Raised by Wolves.
really? Yeah, awesome. What do you think, Chloe? Who was originally supposed to direct? A, B, C, or D?
Um, I originally picked A, so I'm just gonna stick with that. I'm not sure though.
Well, you are correct. Yeah, indeed. Steven Spielberg was originally supposed to direct. Back at that time, DreamWorks, originally known as DreamWorks SKG, for founders Steven Spielberg, Jeffrey Katzenberg, and David Geffen, they had a partnership with Paramount and worked together on things. But after that partnership split, the story actually belonged to Paramount. So Steven Spielberg, as part of DreamWorks, was not able to direct it anymore, and then became Christopher Nolan, who did his Christopher Nolan thing. He has made so many great movies, including Inception, Memento, the
Tenant?
Batman, the whole Dark Knight trilogy movies.
Tenant.
Yeah. Ready for your second question? The name of the black hole in Interstellar was what? Was it A, Gargantua, B, Giganta, or C, Colossus?
I'm gonna go with A.
I'm also gonna go with A.
Nice. The correct answer is, in fact, A. Sounds good. You guys are crushing it. This is nice. Yeah, Gargantua in the movie was supposed to be about 100 million times the mass of our sun. And so the whole plot of the movie, the gist of it was somehow a wormhole had opened up near Saturn. And so there was a first group of astronauts that were sent to look for inhabitable planets on the other side, which all happen to be around a gigantic black star called Gargantua. And apparently 3 of those planets got positive feedback from the scouting trips. So Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway and a few other astronauts were sent to explore those 3 planets around this black hole. And that brings us to our last question. True or false? The black hole shown in the film was scientifically accurate.
False.
I'm gonna
True or false?
say I'm gonna say true. I know Neil deGrasse Tyson loves to point out when films get stuff wrong, and it feels like I would have heard about this if they'd gotten that one wrong. Because like he got on James Cameron about the stars in the sky not being correct in the movie Titanic, to where
Oh, jeez.
Oh my
yeah, like oh, at
goodness.
that time of year it would have been Orion above, to where on later releases Cameron fixed it.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, Cameron is so
That
attentive to detail. I guess that's interesting. He left out that part. What do you think, Chloe?
that's
True or
so
false?
true about Neil deGrasse. I think that's so true about Neil deGrasse Tyson that he loves to point out when people get the science wrong. I'm still gonna go with false. We'll see.
Indeed. Correct answer is, in fact, true. Kip Thorne is a theoretical physicist who served as a consultant and advisor on this film. And he actually did the math, the equations that were given to the special effects team to create the computer special effects of that black hole. And so good was the work, their work was actually published in a scientific journal and is considered to be probably the most scientifically accurate representation of a black hole. And it's a
That's
beautiful
super
thing.
cool.
If you can see it, it is really quite the spectacle. And it's a critical plot point because they use the gravitational field as a slingshot effect to get enough velocity to continue on to the last planet. Anne Hathaway by herself. Matthew McConaughey ejects himself to lighten the load so that Anne Hathaway has enough fuel in the rocket to make it all the way. He ends up going into the black hole where he ends up communicating through time space to his daughter. Yeah, trippy movie. I have seen it a few times and I still don't understand it completely.
I think I'm gonna rewatch it tonight. I don't really have anything to do later. I think I'm gonna rewatch it.
Nice. Yeah. You've seen it
It's a
before,
good movie to
Chloe?
watch. Yes, I've seen it a few times.
Yeah. Yeah, great movie. Highly recommended for sure. Well, panelists, as always, it's been real. You are the best panel that we've had yet on this podcast series. I know I say that to every panel, but with you guys, I really mean it.
Well, it's true for us.
It is. Thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others, and to all our friends at L&L Research. Thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others, and to you who are watching this video at some point in the near or distant future. Thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. We are sending you our love light, and we are receiving yours. Until next time, in the love and light of the one infinite creator, Adonai, namaste. Say goodbye, panelists.
Thanks for having me, guys. Have a wonderful life and a wonderful day.
Peace.